Reverend Fowler, how long have you been a minister?
Well, my parents were missionaries, so I grew up overseas. So I was ordained at the age of 17. I finished Bible school in 1987. Since that time, have worked in or around churches, so for a little bit.
You've been there a while. Let me ask you, the folks that you have worked with, is it your experience that they're generally lazy and generally just here as, wanting to take advantage of a welfare state, or
Well, sir, I know this doesn't play into what...
I mean, we want to know.
I know it doesn't play into the conception, but the people that I see are people who are entrepreneurs, businessmen. I know of people who have come to this country, illegally or not, but now they are business owners. They are people who are employing other people who are legal citizens. They are people who are providing a service, who pay city taxes, who pay state taxes. They're buying homes. On top of the rest of the issues that we have going here, what are you going to do when we put 10% more of the homes back on the market because the person who is living there and paying the bills and paying the utilities is now deported to Mexico? In Fort Worth, I don't think our economy needs that. I've got 5 houses for sale on my street. Do I really want 5 more to go on sale? Do I want my property values to go down even more? And I think what we need to do is say, let's take a look at what's right, and for once, just kind of set some of the rhetoric and the party lines aside and vote for what's right.
Well, and Reverend Fowler, it seems to me that part of the conversation from a religious perspective is always about family values. And how, is it your fear that really legislation like this is kind of not in the same vein as family values? I mean, it's going to split a lot of families.
Well, the reality of it is it's going to split family who, part of the family are documented citizens and part of the family is not. And in the case of if the children are minors, then what? We send them to a country that's not their country? Or do we expect them to become wards of the state? And then who's going to take care of them? Who's going to raise them? I don't think I personally want children of my congregation being raised by a court-appointed executor when they could be with their family.
And that's my question, because the minister who spoke before you, Reverend Aguirre, I believe, indicated that, he'd seen a little boy whose mother was deported, and that had some pretty serious consequences on the little boy, is that in terms of counseling with people? Can you see how that would be?
It's going to be a severe problem, and I know there are people who would say, well, and we've heard it here today, well, just take the kids with you back to Mexico. Okay, that's fine. You take a 5-year-old boy back to Mexico where he grows up in another culture. We're talking about wanting people to integrate into society. So for the next 13 years, he's going to live in another country, under another culture, and he's going to learn another set of values, perhaps. When he comes back here at 18, when he is legal and can come back in the country because he is a citizen, what's his attitude, what's his value system going to be? I mean, we're trying to do a short-term knee-jerk reaction that's going to have long-term adverse effects on Texas and on the United States. And I don't pretend to know what the answer was. I mean, if I did, then I would be running for office. But, we understand the complexity and the balance and the line that you have to walk. But I think at some point we need to let common sense prevail.
Well, thank you so much.
No, and Pastor, I think very few of us have the answers, to be quite honest with you. I think the issue is not so, and I don't think that's the requirement. I think the requirement is the right attitude and the right approach and common sense and having a doing what's right approach and thinking it long term. And you just talked about in addition to the separation of the families, if you're just looking at it from a purely conservative perspective, the additional cost to the state. Now all the taxpayers have to have to pay for the raising of those children who might be left behind. I mean, so there's tremendous cost. So you can you can look at this from many perspectives. The fact that, in the past we've asked for amendments to allow for exclusion or to let chiefs prioritize calls, and those common sense amendments have not been. So I think you don't think in terms of having to have all the answers. Just keep that same common sense approach, and please let everyone that you talk to, because I think you could be a good ambassador, a bridge builder, and that's what this debate needs. It needs more people who can build bridges between those folks who think those of us who are opposed to this are unpatriotic and not Texan and not caring about this country. And so you seem to have a middle ground there, and I thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
And one last thing. Part of the reason we're here is because there's some very bad people out there that have done some terrible things, not only to American citizens, but to other immigrants. I mean, terrible things. So
yes, sir.
How do you balance, and the federal government has been an abject failure in this. As a matter of fact, they haven't even made an effort. And that's why we're sitting here, because they have made no effort. And the dilemma is, how do we address these really bad people and at the same time, not pull really good people into the same,
yes, sir,
with the same brush. I mean, it's.
I think one of those things, and it's something that I'm hearing in the language that's going to actually take tools away from the officers. I'm not a sworn peace officer, but I do remember that the interim chief, before the chief that we have now in Fort Worth, made the statement. She said, I personally don't care about someone's immigration status as long as they're obeying the law. And when you begin to take that out of the chief's hands, or those people who are in authority, and try to put one more thing on the plate of officers who many times are overworked and trying to remember many different laws, and creating that mistrust, I mean, I can tell you from experience what's going to happen is there's going to be members of my church that if something happens to them, they're not going to call the police. So they're going to suffer.